Picture two young boys, both growing up fatherless, carrying family names that once triggered actual warfare on the streets of Chicago, and then unexpectedly, they cross paths and take a photograph. A photo so stunning that when King Von's mother saw it, her reaction completely paralyzed the rap world. As commentators, we have to analyze why this hit so hard. Behind these innocent boys lies a dark history drenched in violence, betrayal, vicious diss tracks, and endless tragedies. Their fathers did not just exchange words, they led opposing factions in one of the most brutal, heavily documented, and heartbreaking hip-hop conflicts Chicago has ever witnessed. It was a war that forced fans worldwide to take side, a clash that birthed some of the most chilling drill music ever recorded. Yet, this feud tragically ended with both young artists dead at age 26. Their inner circles are locked away or struggling, leaving their children behind to bear names the streets will never forget. That symbolic photo of those two boys shook the internet because it was entirely unexpected. The generational hostility between their fathers ran so incredibly deep that many assumed the bitter feud would outlast them all. Yet, here are these two sons, entirely disconnected from the violence, just existing and enjoying childhood. When King Von's mother, Taisha, witnessed the image, her sudden response forced the entire Chicago music scene to take notice. But before we analyze her statement and its cultural impact, our team must trace this tragedy back to its absolute origin. We must examine the roots of this rivalry, the reality of who these men were, their lyrical threats, the street warfare, and those who ended up facing federal charges, plus the true cost of their loss. Without this context, you might think it is just a picture of two cute children. But with the full story, it stands as one of the most bittersweet, haunting images in Chicago rap history. Welcome back to our channel. Make sure to hit subscribe for more hip-hop reporting. We are taking you through the entire story, from Parkway Gardens to 63rd Street, exploring the federal courtrooms, the tragic funerals, and a peaceful moment that neither Von nor Duck got to witness. Before we examine the details, our team must clarify a critical detail from the start. This was never just a music industry feud or two creators fighting over a verse, a stolen flow, or online attention. The war between King Von's camp and FBG Duck was built on deep Chicago street politics that spanned years before either artist ever held a microphone or saw a camera. This was Parkway Gardens, known globally as O Block, locked in conflict with 63rd Street. Both sides suffered immense loss and harbored deep grudges long before they ever gained views or streams. King Von, born Davon Daquan Bennett on August 9, 1994, was raised on O Block in Chicago. This neighborhood was the territory Lil Durk, Lil Reese, and Chief Keef made famous during the rapid rise of drill music in the early 2010s. Yet O Block was far more than a musical setting. It was an environment where loyalty was everything and disloyalty was completely unforgivable. Von did not just rap about street life, he was an absolute product of it. His powerful songwriting grew from delivering authentic stories about real people from a real neighborhood. That raw honesty made him one of the most captivating voices of his era. Meanwhile, FBG Duck, born Carlton Weekly on September 11, 1994, represented 63rd Street, a block locked in conflict with O Block for generations. Duck possessed undeniable talent, remaining one of Chicago's most underrated artists. His delivery was smooth, his pen game was incredibly sharp, and he commanded a highly dedicated fan base that understood exactly what he represented. However, the geographic reality of where he was raised put him in direct conflict with Von's territory. Once that hostility transitioned to music and gained millions of views, it created a point of no return for both artists. We should note, this was not a dispute that could be resolved by simply sitting down together. The animosity was generational, not created by rap. The music merely acted as the loudest megaphone for a long-standing street conflict. The tracks took a localized war and broadcasted it on a global stage, which dramatically raised the stakes of everything that followed. According to our reporting, by 2018 and 2019, King Von was rising at an undeniable pace. He had already released Crazy Story, which still stands as a masterclass in street storytelling from Chicago. His talent for drawing listeners into a scene and building tension with each line was rare. As commentators, we saw him signed to Lil Durk's label, building major industry connections and capturing the kind of momentum that predicted global stardom. Be sure to like this video if you are enjoying the analysis. However, back home in Chicago, that mainstream success did not mean the street war was going to pause. The feud between O Block and 63rd Street remained highly active, and King Von was never one to downplay his background. He wore his neighborhood identity proudly and used his lyrics to detail his feelings toward his rivals on the opposing side. The most analyzed diss track of this entire conflict was "Took Her to the O." If we dissect the layers of that track, the obvious narrative and the underlying reality are completely different. On a surface level, it depicts a woman from rival territory visiting O Block. But beneath that story, the track serves as a heavy insult towards 63rd Street and its affiliates. Von constructed the song to paint the opposition bloc as weak, vulnerable, and unable to protect its own people. Delivering these direct insults in a casual, melodic tone made the disrespect sting far worse than aggressive threats. In Chicago street culture, your neighborhood represents your entire identity, your family, history, and legacy. Disrespecting someone's block means disrespecting everyone they have ever known, everyone they have ever lost, and everything they represent, lost, and everything they ever stood for. So, when Von made 63rd Street the punchline of a song that millions of people would hear, that was not some minor insult. It was a direct declaration, and the entire city understood it. But it did not stop there. Von made his mockery of 63rd Street a constant theme in his music and freestyles. He kept poking at the wound, referencing it, making it a target, since he was one of the fastest rising names in drill music back then. Outsiders who had never set foot in Chicago, with zero context for this neighborhood history, were suddenly forming opinions about 63rd Street entirely through Von's lens. He held the power to shape global narratives, and he used it heavily, making the residents on 63rd feel that weight daily. Now, this is where you and I must analyze FBG Duck's response, because he was not about to be silenced. Duck had his own massive platform, his own powerful voice, and his own perspective on the conflict. He fired back with his own lyrical shots, and his response was never vague. He directly addressed losses on the O Block side, threw it in their faces, and made it clear that 63rd Street would not be disrespected without a fight. His delivery was controlled, precise, and highly calculated. Unlike average emotional rappers who rap sloppily, Duck was methodical, and his tracks reflected an artist who understood the true power of a well-placed lyric. This bitter back and forth between rival camps created a body of work that Chicago rap fans dissected religiously. Every bar was analyzed, every reference decoded, and the comment sections turned into digital battlegrounds, with fans arguing over who had the better bars, who spoke the truth, and whose side of the story was legitimate. But here is where you and I see the real tragedy. The music was just one dimension. The streets were the other. By the summer of 2020, these two worlds were colliding in a direction that was never going to end well for anyone. On August 4th, 2020, FBG Duck was shot and killed on the Magnificent Mile in downtown Chicago. He was just 26 years old. This shooting happened in broad daylight on a premier luxury shopping street, which meant the tragic news instantly went national. Everyone from local Chicago media to major mainstream networks covered the shocking story. Anyone who knew the intense history between Duck's crew and his rivals knew this was no random act. This had deep roots, connected to a long brewing feud online and on the streets. Duck's death devastated his family, community, and global fan base. Here was an artist with immense talent and real momentum, finally gaining the mainstream recognition he deserved. He left behind a young son, and his family lost a cornerstone, while Chicago lost another massive voice that could have been truly generational. Then, just months later, on November 6th, 2020, King Von was shot and killed outside an Atlanta nightclub after a dispute. He was also 26. Two men from opposing sides of the same street war, both dead at 26 in the same year. The devastation hitting these communities in 2020 was immeasurable, and the culture has been mourning those losses ever since. But the craziest twist, the chapter adding a whole new level to this tragedy, came when federal charges and convictions began dropping in FBG Duck's murder case. In 2024, federal verdicts sent shockwaves straight through the Chicago music scene and beyond. The individuals convicted were closely tied to O-Block and the very circle King Von ran with. These were no strangers. These were prominent figures in Von's world. Individuals who visibly shared his orbit, shared his enemies, and understood exactly what the rivalry with Duck's camp meant. Let me make this clear. King Von was not alive for these trials, having been killed years before the verdicts. But the individuals who federal prosecutors proved planned and carried out FBG Duck's daylight murder on the Magnificent Mile were from his inner circle. They took a music feud and turned it into a major federal racketeering case. The prosecution built an airtight case, using surveillance footage, cell phone tracking data, and incriminating social media posts made before and after the shooting, alongside witness testimony. They proved this was not just spontaneous street violence. It was a highly coordinated strike. It was deliberate, executed in one of the most heavily monitored public areas possible, which ultimately made it easy for federal investigators to solve. For Duck's family, the guilty verdicts offered some justice, but no court decision brings a person back, nor fills the void a father leaves behind. His son will grow up knowing a federal court confirmed what the streets already knew, that his father's death was a calculated hit. That truth is a heavy burden to carry. For the convicted men, the reality is incredibly grim. They will spend decades, potentially the rest of their prime years, inside a federal penitentiary, all over a conflict born on Chicago's South Side long before any of them could comprehend the cycle they were inheriting. That is the tragedy of this story that gets overlooked by casual fans who only focus on the drama. To help you and I truly understand how deep this loyalty runs, let's put it in perspective. When you grow up around O-Block or 63rd Street, your neighborhood is not just where you sleep. It is where your family is. It is the community that raised you when the system forgot you. The only people who stood by you when institutions completely failed. That fierce and deep loyalty, as beautiful as it is, can also become the exact reason you get killed. Because when your block is at war, you inherit that conflict whether you chose it or not. This context does not excuse the violence, but it explains how talented young artists with bright futures end up making choices that destroy their lives. It explains why the cycle never stops, and why the music kept tearing open wounds that were unhealed. It shows why a local turf battle between two Chicago neighborhoods ultimately became a federal murder case that grabbed national headlines. We saw the public watch this unfold through King Von's lens because of his massive platform. His vivid storytelling made listeners believe they knew the whole story. But FBG Duck's side of this tragedy, his community's grief, their losses, and their history was just as real and incredibly deep. They simply lacked the same reach. We believe that narrative imbalance is crucial to acknowledge. If you appreciate our coverage, please subscribe. Now, let's examine the surrounding music culture of this era. It is vital context that many media outlets ignore. The Chicago drill scene already faced intense scrutiny from police, local politicians, and reporters before this legendary rivalry reached its deadliest phase. Civic leaders across the country pointed to drill rap as a catalyst for street violence, using it to claim that social media and lyrics were driving gang disputes. Rappers saw their shows axed, their videos banned, and their every move tracked by investigators who treated creative lyrics as literal courtroom confessions instead of music. Both Von and Duck were trapped in that hostile environment. They created music in a climate where any bar could be weaponized in court, while their public feud was monitored not only by listeners, but by federal agents building criminal cases. That level of state surveillance deeply affects an artist. It forces them to double down on their persona. Backing down in that hyper-visible space, right in front, their fan base, feels like a defeat their neighborhood would never forgive. The real truth we rarely discuss about this feud is how outside voices fueled the fire. Let's look closely at the online fans and comment sections treating real violence like spectator sports, and blogs chasing cheap clicks without weighing the human toll on these communities. Everyone wanted the high-stakes entertainment. No one wanted to face the bloody cost of making it. This does not excuse the actors involved. Personal accountability is absolute. However, the surrounding media machine fed on this conflict, driving unavoidable escalation. When a diss track dropped, it pulled 100,000 views immediately. Street violence instantly turned into breaking blog news. The financial incentives pointed in only one direction. If you want more deep dives like this, hit like, and that was straight into self-destruction. As reporters, we watched the aftermath hit the broader OTEF and O-Block community following King Von's death. The musical legacy survived with Lil Durk carrying that heavy burden publicly while still fighting to construct an empire from their shared creations. Losing Von devastated more than his relatives. It shattered an entire financial network of associates whose economic futures depended on their collective success. That shockwave still registers today in the music industry, corporate boardrooms, and in how the surviving inner circle steer their careers and private lives. Meanwhile, for those in FBG Duck's camp, the subsequent years brought immense, unique challenges. They fought to preserve his catalog while processing their immense trauma, all while observing a grueling federal murder trial unfold. That is a staggering psychological burden. His young son deserves to learn the full truth of his father's identity, not just the feud, not just his final moments, but his raw talent, charisma, and the deep love friends share when remembering him behind closed doors. Now, this is where our analysis reveals a stunning turn that absolutely nobody saw coming. A recent photo surfaced online showing King Von's grandson standing alongside FBG Duck's young son. Just two small children, oblivious to the heavy generational trauma of their family names, simply playing and posing like normal kids. That powerful snapshot instantly went viral on social media. When Von's mother, Taisha, saw the image and commented, our coverage caught a massive wave of public reaction. This is a mother who has endured unspeakable tragedy, losing her child to the streets, then watching his closest associates face harsh federal prison sentences. She has carried that heavy cross while remaining a bedrock for her family. Seeing those two innocent children united in one frame sparked a maternal response that transcended gang rivalries and local politics. It spoke directly to the vulnerable generation left behind when adults trade their lives for pride. Comment sections immediately split down the middle, as always occurs with Chicago hip-hop history. Many praised it as a beautiful, healing moment, while other observers focused solely on the historical blood feud, insisting forgiveness is impossible. To us, this sharp division tells the entire story because it highlights how deeply these trauma scars run in the culture, refusing to close, even though the two main rap figures of this tragedy are both dead. Even after the federal justice system stepped in, even as innocent children attempt to walk without their parents' heavy baggage. Ultimately, as we analyze this, the saga of King Von and FBG Duck transcends a mere rap feud. This was never just about diss records, turf wars, or who had the final say before tragedy struck. It is about the devastating human capital Chicago has lost for decades. It is about poverty, systemic neglect, and generational trauma turning adjacent communities against each other until residents genuinely believe their survival depends entirely on destroying whoever stands on the other side of an invisible boundary line. Members of Von's crew now sitting in federal penitentiaries, paying a staggering price that will follow them forever. In a different set of social conditions, these individuals might even doing something else entirely. But street pressure, loyalty, and the street code demand terrible costs that nobody calculates in the beginning. Nobody believes they will become the next breaking news alert. If you found this editorial insightful, subscribe and support our journalism. Fans treated this rap beef like entertainment, posting clips, arguing in comments, and taking sides like a sport. But we need a real conversation. This is about the gap between consuming hip-hop and understanding it. Every brutal diss track targeted a real human being. Every single bar referencing a block was actually about a real community with real families. And when those young men started dying or going to prison, the comment sections went dead silent. Because when reality hits, the entertainment stops. The real question we are left with as observers is what happens next. What becomes of the kids in that viral photo? They will grow up in a Chicago that still remembers this cycle. They are bound to meet people who hold strong opinions about their fathers. They must learn how to carry those heavy last names in a world where those names carry a massive, complex history. All we can hope as commentators is that the grandmothers, aunties, and surviving community leaders who survived this violence have the wisdom and strength to give these kids a better future than the generation before them. Von was a natural storyteller. His entire legacy rests on making people feel real pain and triumph through rap lyrics. If he could tell his own story today, the complete, painful picture From the Chicago streets to the feuds, the casualties, and the fatherless children, you have to think even he would have admitted that this was not how the story was supposed to end. The streets offer promises they can never keep. And those who learn that too late simply become cautionary tales for the next generation. As we report on this, what are your thoughts on the tragic feud between King Von and FBG Duck? What do you think that viral photo of their kids really represents for Chicago's future? We want to hear your perspective, so drop a comment below, and do not forget to like and subscribe. To analyze more stories shaping hip-hop culture, tap the video on your screen right now. We have more waiting,